go out to the guest line right now and welcome in one of the best people covering the NFL. And that, of course, is my pal Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. And make sure you get his new book that's out called Son of Mine. Mike, always appreciate when you're able to jump on board with us. Thanks for doing this. How you been?
Zach, thanks for having me. I've been well. It's been crazy. We're already a third of the way through the regular season. At times it feels like it never ends. At times it just flies by.
So the Jets today, they put lipstick on a pig. They got a very good player in Davante Adams, but the Jets still have a lot of issues. What's your view of this football team now knowing that the Jets got Aaron Rodgers' best pal in Davante Adams?
Well, I think this is a sign, and Woody Johnson probably didn't use these exact same words, but they're going to do everything they can to justify the decision to move on from Robert Saleh. So go get Davante Adams. I wouldn't be surprised if they pay Hassan Reddick just to get him to show up, maybe make some other moves as well. Go all in to make it look like he did the right thing last week when he fired Robert Saleh out of the blue. These owners all have rabbit ears. He surely heard the things Bill Belichick said yesterday, something fairly innocuous on the Let's Go podcast, but then on the Manning cast last night, basically owner being the owner, ready, fire, aim, and there's animosity there as well. So I think there's a desire by Woody Johnson to prove himself right. And so he's going to go out and he's going to mortgage the future to a certain extent to help make himself look better in the present.
You know, it's interesting that you bring up Hassan Reddick, who they're now allowing seek a trade. I think most people just believe that Hassan's going to get traded somewhere else, but you think that, okay, they could still find a way with Rosenhaus now representing Reddick to get a deal done and try to figure something out with the Jets?
Sometimes when you give a guy permission to seek a trade, you're hoping that he sees what else isn't out there. The 49ers, I believe, thought that Brandon Ayuk was going to find that out before the draft when they gave him permission to quietly see what else was out there, and there were 5 teams that were willing to pay him what he wanted, and then the 49ers were like, uh-oh. So I think that this is, in part, giving Reddick and Rosenhaus a chance to see that what he wants isn't out there, and that anyone that would give him what he wants isn't willing to give the Jets what they would want to get the deal done. That lays the foundation for the Jets and Reddick to work something out if Reddick indeed wants to play. At some point, he's got to come back to avoid the contract tolling into 2025 if he doesn't play this year. And I think we're getting closer and closer to that, although the fact that Reddick has yet to accept an offer from the Jets, his agency fired him, those are all indications that he's not listening to what others think is good reason.
Mike Florio here with us from Pro Football Talk. If everything in your eyes goes right for the Jets the rest of the way, what do you think this team could accomplish after starting 2-4?
I think they could get to the playoffs and lose in the divisional round, kind of like the same as the Cowboys. They can win games. They will lose games. Now, on the nights that Aaron Rodgers plays like old Aaron Rodgers, and I don't mean chronologically old Aaron Rodgers, I mean Aaron Rodgers of yesteryear, they should win the game. It hurts on a night that he plays like he's turned back the clock and they lose. Doesn't hurt as much when he plays poorly and has bad demeanor and gets banged around and they lose to the Vikings the way they did, even though they still almost won that game. They need to win the games when Aaron Rodgers is showing up as Aaron Rodgers of yesteryear. If they don't, it's going to be a problem, and maybe Davante Adams makes them a playoff contender, but I think there's a hard cap on what they can do unless they get hot. And in 2010, they were the last team in Green Bay, went on a run, beat the Eagles in Philly, beat the Falcons handily, the number 1 seed in Atlanta, beat the Bears in Chicago, went to the Super Bowl, beat the Steelers in Dallas. So, something like that's not impossible. Getting hot at the right time isn't impossible, but I just think this is a team that's kind of be up and down, and maybe there's enough up that they get into the playoffs. But the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Texans, I don't know that they can compete with those teams when it's single elimination time.
Yeah, why didn't one of those contenders, Mike, a team like the Ravens, right, who have a window, you got Lamar Jackson, you got Derrick Henry, the Jets give up a 3, there's conditions to make it a 2, the chances of it being a 2 are really slim to none. Why didn't a team like Baltimore just say, bleep it, let me give a second-round pickup to go get Davante Adams?
Yeah, first or second team All-Pro for a guy who has missed multiple games and is in the process of changing cities and changing teams. He's not going to have the kind of production that's going to get him to that level. Basically one of the top 4 or 5 receivers in the NFL. I think the Ravens, were interested if they could steal him. I don't think they were willing to mortgage any of the future. And the best GMs think not just of right now, they think of next year too. Woody Johnson is willing to throw next year to the wind to get what he wants right now. And that's why I thought eventually the Raiders would get something, not what they wanted for Davante Adams, and they put out this phony notion over the weekend that I rejected, and I said so at the time, that maybe they're just going to keep him. That is, and this is how the sausage gets made, that is the Raiders asking Adam Schefter for a favor. Will you please put this out there for a Sunday splash report so we can try to rebuild some trade leverage, because nobody thinks we're going to keep him. We don't have multiple teams in a tug of war for him. We need to sell the idea that maybe we won't trade him to get that last little bit we're looking for from the Jets. And I don't know if it worked, but 2 days later, a trade's done.
Talking to Mike Florio right now, and the Bills, they see the Adams move with the Jets, and they go get Amari Cooper. I think that's a savvy move by one Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills.
Well, and it's something that we don't see them do in season. It's back to that balance I was talking about. How much are you willing to mortgage a little bit of the future in order to help yourself in the present? In 2021, Von Miller became available in trade, and Odell Beckham Jr. was cut by the Browns. The Rams picked up both guys. And I remember saying at the time, if the Bills had been the team to get both guys, maybe the Bills would have been the team to win the Super Bowl that year. You have to be willing to make a move at the right time for the right reason and the right price, and then hope it pays off. That kind of is what Jerry Jones got so pissed about today. You're going to make some decisions that you think are good, that go bad. You're going to make some decisions that might look bad and turn out to be good. And don't rattle off my failures without giving me praise for some of my accomplishments. He's saying that because he's made some bad decisions. And we don't know how these decisions are going to work out. And I think a lot of times teams will get paralyzed with fear of the unknown and not do deals. And I think maybe that's why the Cowboys maybe didn't do some of the deals they could have done, like Derrick Henry. The whole league whiffed on Derrick Henry except the Ravens. It's easy to blame the Cowboys because he wanted to play in Dallas by all indications. But it all comes down to mortgaging the future versus helping yourself now, and having a crystal ball that no one has to understand that that move isn't just going to be a waste of future draft picks.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I remember it was going into the offseason, everyone said, oh, get the deal done before the start of free agency with Dak so you could spread out that contract the way that you want and open up some more cap room for this year. That's the point that, and the problem that I have with Jerry Jones is they like kind of dragged this thing throughout the entire offseason, and then right as the season started, you get the deal done. It would have been more productive to get the deal done back in March, and you could have maybe been more aggressive this offseason.
You're right. And CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
Both of them. CeeDee Lamb held out until not long before week one, had a huge cap number, nearly $18 million that got chopped down by $8 or $9 million, maybe as many as $10 million. Dak Prescott had that huge cap number that needed to be dropped. And remember, Jerry Jones said Senior Bowl week, he's all in the traditional sense, not some made up to make it fit whatever you wanted to fit gaslight sense. All chips in the middle of the table. We're trying to win now. That kind of all in, the kind of all in the Jets may be inclined to do. And you can't do it if you don't do deals for Lamb and Prescott. And the only potential genius here, and I don't know that it's worth giving him this bit of credit, by waiting as long as he did with Lamb and Prescott, he didn't have to worry about Micah Parsons banging on the door saying, I want mine. Parsons was more likely to go along and wait his spot and wait his turn. But that's giving him too much credit. I think he was just being cheap. I said at the time, they're cheap, they're short-sighted, and they're not as smart as they think they are. When they were wandering through this minefield of free agency and really not even entering the door, because they said, well, we can't afford it. We need cap space. We need this. We need that. And they could have done it, and they could have made the moves necessary to keep the team from playing in 3 home regular season games like they played in the home playoff game.
Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk here with us. On October 15th right now, if you had to give me your best educated guess on where Belichick is coaching next year, what would you say, Mike?
I think about this more than I should, and it's not healthy. There has to be a fan base that wants him, and I think that's why he's doing so much media this year. You have to say that this 73-year-old head coach with a history of being kind of a miserable curmudgeon is the guy who's going to make the difference for your franchise and get you excited about the future. You need an owner who is willing to either throw him the keys to the car or take the risk that if you make him just the coach and he's working for a GM who is maybe half his age, that it's going to work and not be a disaster. Now, he is the best game day X's and O's, get your guys ready to go play. Whoever you give me, I'll get the best out of them head coach that the NFL has ever seen. So that's the selling point. I think that when it's all said and done, and I hate to say this because I don't want to prematurely put people on the hot seat or presume they're going to lose their jobs, but I could see the Giants putting him in control of everything because he's wanted to go there. And if you're faced with the prospect of him going to Dallas or Philadelphia, let's just bring him here. Let's not deal with him. Let's deal with him. And I think that would be the one team that stands out to me. Because if the Cowboys and Eagles were going to do it, why the hell didn't they do it after the 2023 season? That would have been the perfect time to make the change.
And the fascinating part to this is what Bill is going to value. Because if he just values the control and you go to the Giants, you're not going to win a whole lot of games. But he could go win games and easily get that Shula record, go make a few playoff runs. I don't know if he's going to win a Super Bowl if you go to a place like Philadelphia or if you go to a place like Dallas. You're not really going to go on this great run with how bare the roster is in New York right now.
Well, you're right. And Philadelphia is a place where they desperately need a grown-up on the sidelines. What Nick Sirianni did on Sunday was, I think, unbecoming. I think it was stupid. To get yourself caught up in an argument with fans, that's part of what you have to deal with. That's part of the life they've chosen. You're supposed to be, and I'm not saying act like Bud Grant and Tom Landry used to act and never make a facial expression, but you need to be able to ignore the people who hide behind the anonymity of a crowd to say things they'd never say to you face to face. Now, maybe in Philly they would, but for the most part, like the commissioner's a great example. You put him in front of the crowd and there's a boo, and then he walks out of the crowd. Hey, come on. Let's take a selfie, commissioner. So I think that as a coach, you just need to understand it goes with the territory. And if you engage, Fred Gaudelli reminded me of this Bill Walsh quote after this happened on Sunday. If you listen to the fans, you're going to be sitting with them. And Sirianni, if he keeps acting like that, he'll be the guy up in row 6 yelling at the head coach before too long.
Last thing I'll ask you before the book, Mike Florio. When it comes to the Steelers, it looks like with all the reporting, I know Tomlin wouldn't confirm it today, that they're going to Russell Wilson. Do you like this move? I know Fields hasn't been great, but they're 4-2, and I don't get why the Steelers feel like they owe something to Russell Wilson making, $1.5 million this year.
Well, they don't owe him anything, and I think that if they believe Justin Fields gave them the best chance to win, they would find a way to continue to delay this. I'm surprised they didn't go back to Wilson last week. I thought that's when it was happening. Once he fully participated in practice, because Tony Dungy was at practice the prior Thursday before the Cowboys-Steelers game on NBC, and he said Russell Wilson was tearing up the scout team. So he was running the scout team, tearing up the first team defense, even better. So you get him participating fully in practice last week, and I thought that was the perfect time because Fields kind of fell flat against the Cowboys. You're not really benching him. QB1 is still QB1, and he's healthy now, so off we go. I thought it would happen last week, and the Raiders game would have been a great opportunity to kind of help him get his feet wet. They're not at home, but they had a big showing of fans there, and it was an overmatched opponent. Now, they have back-to-back. I had in my head that the second game is at the Giants. It's back-to-back home games, prime time. Sunday night, Monday night, Jets, Giants. They could be 6-2 at the bye. And it looks like if you tune into NBC or Peacock on Sunday night at 8 Eastern, you're going to get your money's worth because you're going to get to see Russell Wilson in his official and final debut with the Steelers.
All righty, before we let you run, everyone knows where to get all the NFL news on Pro Football Talk. I know you had the book out, Father of Mine. Now you got Son of Mine. Is that correct, Mike Florio?
Son of Mine is the book, $4.99 ebook on Amazon, $14.99 for the print edition. It picks up exactly where Father of Mine left off. Father of Mine, a mob story set in Wheeling, West Virginia, where I was raised, and my dad was a bookie connected to the mob there. So I saw some things that I didn't quite understand when I was young. I learned some things as I got older, and I had an inspiration one night to just sit down and start typing. And the next thing you know, you got 100,000 words and you slap it together and you put it out there. And it's been very well received. Given that what I do normally is kind of in that Sirianni category where you got to have thick skin because there's people who are going to hate what you write and like what you write, and you just keep cashing the checks as long as they keep coming. I have gotten overwhelmingly positive feedback for Father of Mine and Son of Mine. And I can't share the name, but somebody who was moved by something I wrote about my dad bought $10,000 worth of Father of Mine books and had them sent to my house for me to donate as I see fit. So I'm currently basically what I decided to do, Zach, like I'm sending 25 copies to a retired New York firefighter who's going to take them to 25 station houses.
Awesome.
The Division of Corrections in West Virginia, now that they've approved the subject matter, because I didn't think they'd approve it because it's a crime story. You don't want to be giving the inmates any ideas for, crimes they could commit. So they have a standard about what you can and can't send there. They accepted it. So I'm going to send them a bunch. And I'm just basically taking it one good request at a time. Somebody's having a fundraiser for a friend that has cancer. Can you send a signed copy? So Florio at ProFootballTalk.com. If anybody's got any ideas on what I can do with these, I got a garage full of these freaking books. And I got to move them, but I'm only going to move them to places that I think are good causes. So buy Father of Mine for $3.99. Read it. Buy Son of Mine for $4.99. And, reading, Zach, and I'll shut up after this. It's kind of like football, because football gives us something that we can look forward to that takes us away from the day-to-day crap. And if you're reading a good book, that's something that takes you away from the day-to-day crap. That's how I justify our role in the broader societal ecosystem. We're not really contributing anything other than an oasis from the day-to-day crap.
Absolutely love it. Well, Mike Florio, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, buddy. See you.